Hello and welcome to this final first look exploring session looking at the Witches of Lancashire or similar by Thomas Heywood and Richard Brome. We're into the final leg, that perilous time of terror, of disappointment as to how the a play ends, especially when we're enjoying it so much. I mean, I say we're compelled by this play, possibly by witchcraft, I don't know, to be fascinated by it. But I think we still have huge numbers of questions about what it's doing, what we do with it. And more importantly, how the hell is it going to end? Which is something that I'm looking forward to finding out with this wonderful room of people. We are going from Act 4, Scene 4 today, and reading with us, we have reading Bantam and Robin is...
Not from Gotham City, but from Suffolk.
Reading Doughty, Soldier and Winny today is...
Connor from London.
Reading Mistress, Generous, Joan, Maud, and the Epilogue is...
Mark in the Midwest United States.
Reading Generous is...
Hi, Greg from Stratford-on-Avon.
Reading Arthur, Mal, and Seeley is...
Lynn from the Northwest United States.
Reading Lawrence, Miller, Gregory, and Meg is...
Aliki from Athens.
Reading Shakestone, Boy, and Goody, Dickieson is...
Sarah Blake in The Hague.
And reading Parnell, Whetstone, and Gill is...
Lord in Northamptonshire.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be reading stage directions. This may not be the best distribution of parts, so there may be occasional talking to oneself. The usual Act 5 problems of everybody sort of turns up at the end, or towards the end anyway, seems to be a usual thing. But I'm hoping silly voices and or hats will get people through. Act 4, Scene 4. We'll dive into a scene with Mistress Generous and Mal Spencer, who enter.
Welcome, welcome, my girl. What hath thy puggy yet sucked upon thy pretty duggy?
All's well at home and abroad too. Whate'er I bid my pug, he'll do. You sent for me?
I did.
And why?
Wench, I'll tell thee, thou and I will walk a little. How doth Meg and her mammalian?
Of one leg she's grown lame.
Because the beast did miss us last Good Friday feast, I guessed as much.
But All Saints' Night she met, though she did halt downright.
Dickieson and Hargrave, prithee tell, how do they?
All about us well, but Puggy whispered in mine ear that you, of late, were put in fear.
The slave, my man.
Oh, Robin.
He.
My sweetheart.
Such a trick served me.
About the bridle. Now alack.
The villain brought me to the rack. Tied was I both to rack and manger.
But thence how scaped you?
Without danger, I thank my spirit.
Aye, but then how pacified was your good man?
Some passionate words mixed with forced tears did so enchant his eyes and ears. I made my peace with promise never to do the like, but once in ever a witch, thou knowest. Now understand, new business we took in hand. My husband packed out of the town. Know that the house and all's our own.
Enter Whetstone.
Lord, is this your promise, Norm? What, Mal? How dost thou, Mal? You told me you would put a trick upon these gentlemen whom you made me invite to supper, who abused and called me bastard. And when shall I get one upon thee, my sweet rogue? And that you would do I know not what, for you would not tell me what you would do. And shall you and I never have another doing together? Supper is done, and the table is ready to withdraw. And I am risen the earliest from the board, and yet, for aught I can see, I am never a whit the nearer. What? Not one kiss at parting, Mal?
Well, cousin, this is all you have to do. Retire the gallants to some private room, where call for wine and junkets, what you please. Then thou shalt need to do no other thing than what this note directs thee. Observe that, and trouble me no farther.
Very good. I like this beginning well. For where they slighted me before, they shall find me a man of note.
Of this, the meaning?
Marry, lass, to bring a new conceit to pass. Thy spirit I must borrow, more to fill the number 3 or 4, whom we will use to no great harm. Only assist me with thy charm. This night we'll celebrate to sport. 'Tis all for mirth, we mean no hurt.
My spirit and myself command. Mammalian and the rest at hand shall all assist.
Withdraw then, quick. Now, gallant, there's for you a trick.
And they exit. Well, we were asking the question last time. Oh, she repented really quickly, did Mistress Generous? No, she didn't. No, it was all a lie. Once a witch, always a witch, etc. Mark then Alan.
Yeah, literally, as I'm reading it, I'm like, okay, not sure where this is going. And then I get to the forced tears, and I was like, okay, now I know how to play this.
And we have a continuation of the Whetstone plotline, which I was worried we weren't going to get more of. It's like been set up ages ago and then left hanging for a while. And I thought, oh, maybe that's just extraneous world-building detail, character stuff. No, it is a plotline. Excellent. Alan.
I'm just wondering whether the two ladies should be actually doing it almost this in sing-song. Because it does have the feel almost of song material.
Well,
with the appalling rhyme.
Well, I mean, I have to say, I did start feeling it's the opening of a pantomime. Suddenly,
you didn't.
Yeah, it's just the the fairy godmother and whatever turn up and they start talking to it, and it's just it had a sort of it's quite a different style to the rest. It's like whenever the witches get together, they do this, and it's like this is witch speak. Lynn.
Yeah, I wasn't really paying attention last time, but I think when it's just witches on stage, they speak in rhyme couplets.
Mm.
We'll have to.
So that's that. I mean, that's how you. I mean, nobody thought to do that. Use that in witch detection in real life. I mean, if only you should just hang on. Just count the beats. Count the beats. It's like something there. But yeah. So we've got. Not only does Whetstone, is turn up to do for a trick that he can use against people, but it's this back and forth with Mal as well. I'm not sure if that was particularly developed earlier in the play or whether I was just not paying attention. Just this sort of back and forth between the two, and it's I'm that might be editorial overreach actually how some of that functions. I've had my questions about some of the later interjections this text has had. Any other thoughts? I think we've sort of got our eye back in the room, as it were. Okay, Act 4, Scene 5. Whetstone returns. Luckily, he exited earlier in the previous scene, along with Arthur, Shakestone, and Bantam.
Here's a more private room, gentlemen, free from the noise of the hall. Here we may talk and throw the chamber out of the casements. Some wine and a short banquet.
And we have enter with a banquet, wine, and 2 tapers.
So, now, leave us.
And servants exit, we can infer.
We are much bound to you, Master Whetstone, for this great entertainment. I see you command the house in the absence of your uncle.
Yes, I thank my aunt. For though I be but a daily guest, can I be welcome to her at midnight?
Should we pass the time?
Some discourse?
But no such discourse as we had last, I beseech you.
Now, Master Whetstone, you reflect on me. 'Tis true, at our last meeting, some few words then passed my lips, which I could wish forgot. Think I called you bastard?
I think so too, but what's that amongst friends? I would fain know which amongst you all knows his own father.
You're merry with your friends, good Master Byblow, and we're guests here in your uncle's house, and therefore privileged.
Mistress Generous, Maul, and Spirits enter.
I presume you had no more privilege in your getting than I, but tell me, gentlemen, is there any man here amongst you that hath a mind to see his father?
Why, who will show him?
Oh, that's all one. If any man here desire it, let him speak the word, and 'tis sufficient.
Why, I would see my father.
Strike music.
A pedant enters, dancing to the music. The strain done, he points at Bantam, and looks full in his face.
Do you know him that looks so full in your face?
Yes, well, a pedant in my father's house, who, being young, taught me my ABC.
In his house, that goes for your father, you would say. I know one morning when your mother's husband rid early to have a Nisi Prius tried at Lancaster sizes, he crept into his warm place, lay close by her side, and then were you got. Then come, your heels and tail together, and kneel unto your own dear father.
Ha ha ha.
Everyone laughs.
Ha 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 ha.
Thank you.
Abused.
And we can further the pedant exits.
I'm abused.
Why laugh, you gentlemen? It may be more men's causes than his or mine.
To be thus jeered.
Oh, have I given out an Arthur?
Yeah, oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Come, take it as a jest, for I presume 'twas meant no otherwise.
Would either of you two now see his father in earnest?
Yes, canst thou show me mine?
Strike.
And more music we can infer. A nimble tailor enters, dancing using the same posture to Shakestone.
He looks on you. Speak. Do you know him?
Yes, he was my mother's tailor. I remember him ever since I was a child.
Who, when he came to take measure of her upper parts, had more mind to the lower. While the good man was in the fields hunting, he was at home whoring. Then, since no better comfort can be had, come down, ask blessing of your dad.
Ha ha ha.
And infer an exit of the tailor.
Not been endured.
It is plain witchcraft. Nay, since we are all bid unto one feast, let's fare alike. Come, show me mine too.
Strike.
More music. Robin enters with a switch and currycomb, and he points at Arthur.
He points at you.
What then?
You know him.
Yes, Robin, the groom belonging to this house.
And never served your father?
In his youth, I think he did.
And Robin presumably enters somewhere around here, exits somewhere around here.
Who, when your supposed father had business at the Lord President's Court in York, stood for his attorney at home, and so it seems you were got by deputy. What, all a mort? If you will have a little patience, stay and you shall see mine too. And I know I show you him the rather, to find who hath the best man to his father.
Strike.
More music. A gallant enters as before to him.
Now, gentlemen, make me your precedent, learn your duties, and do as I do.
He kneels and addresses the gallant.
A blessing, Dad.
And gallant exits.
Come, let's home. We'll find some other time when to dispute of these things.
Nay, gentlemen, no parting in spleen. Since we've begun in mirth, let's not end in melancholy. You see, there are more byblows than bear the name. It is grown a great kindred in the kingdom. Come, all friends. Let's into the cellar and conclude our revels in a lusty health.
And we can infer some Jedi mind tricks going on here.
I fain would strike, but cannot.
Some strange fate holds me.
Here then all anger end. Let none be mad at what they cannot mend.
Arthur, Bantam, and Shakestone exit, followed by the jeering Whetstone.
Now say what's next.
I' the mill there lies a soldier yet with unscratched eyes. Summon the sisterhood together, for we with all our spirits will thither, and such a caterwauling keep that he in vain shall think to sleep. Call Meg and Doll, Tib, Nab, and Jug, let none appear without her pug. We'll try our utmost art and skill to fright the stout knave in the mill.
And they exit. And we have a call back to the mill plot from earlier, which is always nice because it's like all the threads I was worried weren't going to be picked up. I mentioned last time I was a bit worried about this. I was a bit worried that we weren't going to get some resolution on these things. And no, yep, here they are. Tick, tick, tick. So, you call me a bastard. I'm going to show you a procession of spirits demonstrating that you're all bastard. Everyone's a bastard. Da 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 da. Ah. So that's Whetstone's revenge. And they can't attack him because of magic. And they're going to have an AGM, which is AGM. So there we have that. Thoughts on this?
See that one coming.
I didn't see that as the resolution.
No.
I quite like it as a sort of your own medicine back at you kind of thing. It's glass houses and stones, isn't it? Is everybody in this community an illegitimate child? Lynn, then Mark.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it is sort of tit for tat, right? But it's at the expense of basically all women. That all wives are faithless and like have affairs with inappropriate partners, like not just affairs, but affairs with people of a lower social status. Oh, except me, Whetstone, my natural father is a courtier.
Aliki.
Yeah. No.
Well, I mean, I think it's interesting that it really isn't framed that way. It's not, there's no all women are faithless that's explicitly said, partly because this is women arranging the whole thing, perhaps. And I just thought that was interesting.
Yes, I mean, in a sense, you could argue everybody's just in, it's this idea that nobody's actually really faithful. All the common pieties that we have, none of those are actually true. And that's quite a daring statement to be making. I mean, I'm assuming it's not actually true. I mean, I'm assuming these are just spirits and these are just, something to undermine their sense of place in society. Who your parents are is quite important. And it's quite hard for you to invert that logic the other way. Go to Mark.
Yeah, from my perspective, I feel like one of the challenges in production is just making it feel motivated that they're going to draw their weapons. It feels like an overreaction, but yeah, I think it probably depends on how much Whetstone is really jeering them with that last monologue, or figuring out when exactly they draw their weapons.
I think you can build with that and play with that earlier in as well. And again, I think that one of the problems is that I think today people would just sort of go, I'm a bastard, woo, like woo. Whereas at the time it's a much more a couple of generations back, I certainly my family, it was considered a big problem. But if it's getting across for this society that it has a lot more weight than it does potentially for us today. Lynn.
Sure, agree. There's this page on Reddit called "Am I the Asshole?" And my husband's kind of addicted to it, and he was reading me one poster's question, like he's been with his current wife for 10 years. They've been married for half of that time. She's pregnant for the first time. They're very excited about it, and his buddies convinced him that he should ask her to get a paternity test, and he did, and of course she was very hurt and angry, because he has no reason. I mean, he said in the post, it's a good marriage. She's the best thing that ever happened to me. But, you always want to be sure. So I still think there's a very strong undercurrent of that. Every time a woman gets pregnant, her partner has a touch of, I wonder if it's really mine. I wonder if it's really mine. Even when he has no reason to believe otherwise. I'm not sure that anxiety about cuckoldry has really abated as all that.
Yeah, but I'm not sure this is about cuckoldry. I think this is about legitimacy, and the sense that kind of sense of legitimacy is not so much of a social issue.
I don't know how it is in the States, but a lot of people are born without parents who are married. I was 8 months pregnant when I got married, and people asked me, why bother? Right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, being born of a couple that aren't legally
Yeah.
married, that's quite normative in the States these days. But the anxiety over, like, is that child biologically mine?
But
is still very much there.
But it's the child we're talking about here, not the father.
Yeah. And again, it's about status, isn't it? It's about this higher. My illegitimate father is a higher status than your illegitimate father. Which is a sort of interesting logic. Anyway, let us move into Act 5. We have a promise of an AGM for the witches. I'm sure that's going to go well. And remember, last time we were here, there was an awful lot of people going, there are witches about, we must do something about this. So I'm just also thinking that maybe we should be starting to think about the threat that is coming the other way as well. Because that was yesterday for us, but play terms it was 5 minutes ago. So it's one thing to just put in mind. Anyway, Act 5, Scene 1. Doughty, Miller, and the boy and boy in a cap enter.
Thou art a brave boy, the honour of thy country. Thy statue shall be set up in brass upon the market cross in Lancaster. I bless the time that I answered at the front for thee. Zooks, did I ever think that a godson of mine should have full hand to fist with the devil?
He was ever an unhappy boy, sir, and like enough to grow acquainted with him, and friends may fall out sometimes.
Thou art a dogged sire, and dost not know the virtue of my godson. My son now, he shall be thy son no longer. He and I will worry all the witches in Lancashire.
You were best take heed, though.
I care not, though. We leave not above thee 3 untamed women in the parish. We'll do it.
Do what you please, sir. There's the boy, stout enough to justify anything he said. Now 'tis out. He should be my son still by that, though he was at death's door before he would reveal anything. The damnable jades has so threatened him, and as soon as ever he had told, he mended.
'Tis well he did so. We will so swing them in 2 penny halters. Boy!
For my part, I have no reason to hinder anything that may root them all out. I've tasted enough of their mischief. Witness my usage in the mill, which could be nothing but their roguery. One night, in my sleep, they set me astride stark naked atop of my mill. Bitter cold night, too. It was daylight before I waked, and I durst never speak of it to this hour, because I thought it impossible to be believed.
Villainous hags.
And all last summer, my wife could not make a bit of butter.
It would not come, would it?
No, sir, we could not make it come, though she and I both together churned almost our hearts out, and nothing would come, but all ran into thin, waterish gear. The pigs would not drink it.
Is't possible?
None but one, and he ran out of his wits upon it, till we bound his head and laid him asleep. He's had a wry mouth ever since.
That the devil shall put in their hearts to delight in such villains. I have sought about these 2 days, and heard of 100 such mischievous tricks, through none mortal, but could not find whom to mistrust for a witch till now. This happy boy informs me.
And they should never have been sought for me if their affrightments and devilish devices had not brought my boy into such a sickness. Whereupon, indeed, I thought good to acquaint your worship, and bring the boy unto you, being his godfather, and you now stick not to say his father.
After you, I thank you, gossip. But, my boy, thou hast satisfied me in their names, and thy knowledge of the woman, their turning into shapes, their dog tricks, and their horse tricks, and their great feast in the barn. Pox take them with my sirloin, I say still. But a little more of thy combat with the devil, I prithee. He came to thee like a boy, thou sayest, about thine own bigness?
Yes, sir, and he asked me where I dwelt and what my name was.
Ah, rogue!
but it was in a quarrelsome way, whereupon I was a stout and asked him who made him an examiner.
Ah, good boy.
In that he was my son.
He told me he would know or beat it out of me. I told him he should not and bid him do his worst. And to it we went.
In that he was my son again, ah, boy? I see at it now.
We fought a quarter of an hour till his sharp nails made my ears bleed.
Oh, the grand devil Powron.
I wondered to find him so strong in my hands, seeming but of mine own age and bigness, till I, looking down, perceived he had clubbed cloven feet like ox feet, but his face was as young as mine.
Ox. By his feet, he may be the club-footed horse-courser's father, for all his young looks.
But I was afraid of his feet and ran from him towards a light that I saw, and when I came to it, it was one of the witches in white upon a bridge that scared me back again, and then met me the boy again, and he struck me and left me for dead.
Till I, wondering at his stay, went out and found him in the trance, since which time he has been haunted and frighted with goblins 40 times. Never to tell anything, I had so threatened him, till in his sickness he revealed it to his mother.
And she told nobody but folks on it. Well, Gossip Gretty, as thou art a miller and a close thief, now let us keep it as close as we may till we take 'em and see them handsomely hanged on the way. Ha, my little cuff devil, thou art made a man. Come away with me.
And they exit. Okay, well, we had earlier people asking Robin to remain silent, but also we have the boy who was witness to all the witchery business earlier at the same time as Robin was watching at the same time. It's sort of that sort of odd sense of there are lots of witnesses to the witches here, but they're all young. So yes, Aliki.
It's a really interesting scene in just that way to come after this whole scene we've had about paternity. When we were first reading it, I thought Doughty was saying, oh, well, I'll adopt him. He's so great. But now I almost feel like he's saying, well, actually, this was my unacknowledged child, which you've been raising. I don't know if but that little bit, oh, he was my son when he fought, and he was my son when he stood up for himself. And yeah, there's some undercurrents there that are interesting to me.
Yeah. The Millers come back with a vengeance, and Doughty here is organizing the pitchforks and the burning torches. They're gonna follow through on the witness of the boy. Now, what the boy says happened is mostly accurate, but there does seem to be a few exaggerations in there. I mean, to be fair, he did witness some pretty fantastical goings on, but I don't know whether all of it's true, and or some of it might have happened off stage, so we didn't see it. We also get a bit of costume detail for the other boy that he encounters that has a cloven foot, so that's a costume detail that needs to be followed through from earlier in the play. The costume bill for this keeps getting larger. Cloven feet, organize those, please. Easier to do these days than back in the day. Anyway, any additional thoughts? Everyone's a bit quiet today. The end of the week. Aliki.
Okay, I mean, I hate to shoot down a possible sexual innuendo, but I think there's probably less to the butter churning than we may think, or at least more honest. Because I looked into some witch lore and not into some folklore stuff, come butter come is a fairly common chant. Because it's tricky to get the fat to go here with churning. And there's a point at which once it first starts doing so, that then it starts happening. But until you get there, you're just kind of pounding up and down. And yeah, so it's not necessarily rude. And
yes, no, I one of the reasons I flagged it up in the chat was partly just to go, kind of think I can hear the audience sniggering at some of this, and if that's not the effect that is intended, we might need to tweak some of those lines.
I mean, I think that scene is meant to be funny in various ways. I think you can make that work, especially if you can. Yeah, you can't avoid the laughter, definitely, if you keep that text, but you can bring on the laughter with the appropriate butter churn or inappropriate butter churning gestures.
Yes, I mean you can't sort of avoid it, but it's there were just so many potentialities in that couldn't get it to come, and it just wouldn't, and he just kept working at it, and it just sort of kept and it was all very thin, and it just kept going, and it was just like, is this deliberate or is it not? And I couldn't decide. I was leaning against that it was deliberate, but maybe there's a little bit there. Maybe they just couldn't resist. Anyway, I'm a terribly crude human being. It's fine. Alan,
that's one of the reasons we love you.
And as it follows on fairly closely from the Skimmington, which we did at the end of yesterday's session, the audience are probably already primed to look for double entendre wherever they can.
Well, I mean, this isn't a play that is shying away from home truths and things that earlier plays just wouldn't be bringing up. I don't think. I genuinely don't think they'd be throwing so many bastards about, or potential bastards, in that sense. I just don't think they'd do it. And there's something, just this slight easing off of certain themes that you get when you're into the Carolinian, hey, throw a bit of incest on the fire, it's fine. We haven't had any incest yet, have we? Oh well.
Give it time.
Missed opportunity. Well, actually, they're all possibly horribly inbred, so who knows? Anyway, Act 5, Scene 2. Before I dig myself any further into a hole, we've met the miller, who used to run the mill. Now we have the soldier who is the current incumbent, coincidentally played by the same person. Enter soldier.
These 2 nights I have slept well and heard no noise of cats or rats. Most sure the fellow dreamed and scratched himself in sleep. I have travelled deserts, beheld wolves, bears, lions, indeed, what not of horrid shape? And shall I be afraid of cats in mine own country? I can never grow so mouse-hearted. It is now a calm and no wind stirring. I can bear no sail. Then best lie down to sleep.
Taking off his sword and placing it beside his makeshift bed.
Nay, rest by me, good Morgale, my comrade and fellow bedfellow. If I be waked, see thou be stirring too. Then come a gib as big as Ascaport, we'll make him play a leapfrog. A brave soldier's lodging, the floor of my bed, a millstone for my pillow, the sails for curtains. So, good night.
Good night, Zebedee. Lies down. Mistress, Generous Mole, and all the witches and their sprites enter at several doors.
Is Nab come?
Yes.
Where's Jug?
On horseback yet, now lighting from her broomstaff.
But where's Peg?
Already. Entered the mill already.
Is he fast?
As senseless as a dormouse.
Then to work. To work, my pretty lamplins. Pinch here, scratch. Do that within. Without, we'll keep the watch. The witches retire. The spirits come about him.
Yeah, sorry. The witches retire. The spirits come about him with a dreadful noise, and he starts.
Am I in hell?
Picking up his sword and leaping to his feet.
Then have amongst you devils. This side and that side. What? Behind before? I'll keep my face unscratched despite you all. What? Do you pinch me in private? Claws I feel, but can see nothing. Nothing pinch me thus. Have at you then. Aye, have at you all, Will, and stay at you.
Beats them off, follows them in, and enters again.
One
Carry
of them
on.
I paid in leaping over the hole, a foot or ear or something you have light on. What? Or gone? All quiet. Not a cat that's heard to mew. Nay then, I'll try to take another nap, though I sleep with mine eyes open.
And he exits. Okay, in a sense, this is just silliness scene. But I actually really like the soldier. I think his little goodnight ritual of he's got his trusty sword. Okay, he doesn't use it to fight anymore, but he's going to lay it down properly, and then he's going to make his bed wherever. And it's just a mill. It's not a proper bedroom or anything, but he'll make it into a lovely home. And then they attack him. It's just cruel. But and then he says, "Oh, I'll try and sleep again, but I'm probably not going to shut me up." I'd leave. I'd seriously. Why is he just put? I know he's a soldier and he's terribly doughty and all that, but leave. You haven't got a massive investment in this place. You're just a renter. It's not like one of those things where it's like, why don't they leave the haunted house? Well, if they've got a mortgage, what are they going to do? But he's not on a long-term contract. Go anytime he likes. I like that scene. That was fun. Any additional thoughts on the soldier? It's nice to see him. It's a little callback. I suspect it goes nowhere particularly further from this, but I could be wrong. He might turn up again. We were talking about bits you could potentially cut. I don't want to cut it, but you could potentially, because I suspect it doesn't really connect importantly with the rest of the plot.
I'd keep it.
But I like him. I like him. It's a lovely speech.
Mm.
It's very sweet. Gives you character instantly. I like that when people do that. I don't know who. It's like, there are some characters in this play where I'm sort of going, well, I kind of know who they are. I'm sure you dig into them, they'll come to life a bit more. But it's like Doughty. Do I really know who Doughty is? I kind of do. Anyway, Act 5, Scene 3. Master, Generous, and Robin enter.
Robin, last night that I lodged at home, my wife, as I remember it, lay abroad, but no words of that.
You taught me silence.
I rose thus early, much before my hour, to take her in her bed. 'Tis not yet 5, the sun's scarce up. Those horses taken, lead them into the stables, see them rubbed and dressed. We have rid hard. Now, in the interim, I will step and see how my new mill fares, or whether he slept better in his charge than those which did precede him.
Sir, I shall.
But one thing more.
And whispers, we can refer to Robin, while Arthur enters.
Now, from last night's witchcraft we are freed, and I, that had no power to clear myself from base aspersion, am at liberty for vowed revenge. I cannot be at peace, the night spell being took off, till I have met with noble Master Generous, in whose search the best part of this morning I have spent. His wife, now, I suspect.
By your leave, sir.
Oh, you're well met. Pray, tell me how long is since you were first my father?
Be patient. I beseech you. What do you mean, sir?
But that I honor thy master, to whose goodness I am bound, and still must remain thankful, I should prove worse than a murderer, a mere parasite, by killing thee, my father.
And some sort of gesture of violence.
I? Your father? He's a man I always loved and honoured. He bred me.
Oh, and you begot me. Oh, you used me finely last night.
Pray, what's the matter, sir?
My worthy friend, but that I honor you as one to whom I am so much obliged, this villain could not stir a foot from hence till perished by my sword.
How has he wronged you? Leave a milder temper, I entreat. Relate what and when done.
You may command me. If ask me what wrongs, know this groom pretends he hath strumpeted my mother. If, when blazed last night at midnight, if you ask me further, where, in your own house, when he pointed to me as I had been his bastard.
I did this. I'm an horse again if I got you, master. Why, master!
Inferred trying to get away from the sword.
I know you, Master Arthur, for a gentleman of fair endowments, a most solid brain and settled understanding. Why, this fellow these 2 days was scarce sundered from my side, and for the last night I am most assured he slept within my chamber 12 miles off. We have ne'er parted since.
You tell me wonders, since all your words to me are oracles, and such as I most constantly believe. But, sir, shall I be bold and plain withal? I am suspicious all's not well at home. I dare proceed no farther without leave. There is something lodged within my breast, which I am loath to utter.
Keep it there, I pray. Do a season. Oh, my fears. No doubt ere long my tongue may be the key to open that your secret. Get you gone, sir, and do as I commanded.
Shall, sir. Father, quoth he, I should be proud indeed of such a son.
And exit Robin.
Please you now walk with me to my mill. I fain would see how my bold soldier speeds. It is a place that has been much troubled.
I shall wait on you.
And the soldier enters.
See, he appears.
Good morrow, soldier.
A bad night I have had. Am I to take your meal, sprites?
Prithee tell me, hast thou been frightened then?
How? Frightened, sir? No, the dugget full of devils could not do it. I have not been so nipped and pulled and pinched by a company of hellcats.
Fairies, sure.
Rather soul fiends. Fairies have no such claws. Yet I have kept my face whole, thanks to my scimitar, my trusty billable, for which I vow I have been torn to pieces. But I think I met with some of them. One, I am sure, have sent limping hence.
Didst thou fasten upon any?
Fast or lose, most sure I made 'em fly and skip out of their portholes. But the last, I made her squeak. She had forgot to mew. I spoiled her caterwauling.
But see thy sword.
To look on, put to part with from my hand, 'tis the soldier's custom.
Sir, I observe 'tis bloody towards the point.
For the rest escape scot-free, yet I am sure one hath paid the reckoning.
Look well about. Perhaps there may be seen some tract of blood. Looks about.
Stage direction looks about and finds a hand.
What's here? Is possible cats should have hands and rings upon their fingers?
Most prodigious.
Reach me that hand.
There, that of the three I canst spare.
Amazement upon wonder, what can this be? I needs must know it by most infallible marks. Is this the hand once plighted holy vows, and this the ring that bound them? Doth this last age afford what former never durst believe? Oh, how have I offended those high powers that my great incredulity should merit a punishment so grievous, and to happen under mine own roof, mine own bed, my bosom?
Know you the hand, sir?
Yes, and too well can read it. Good Master Arthur, bear me company unto my house. In the society of good men there's solace.
Sir, I'll wait on you.
And soldier, do not leave me. Lock thy mill. I have employment for thee.
I shall, sir. I think I have tickled some of your tenants at will, that thought to revel here rent-free. The best is, if one of the parties shall deny the deed, we have their hand to show.
They exit. Okay, so there was consequence and a continuation of the soldier plot. I like the way these plots have intersynced. This sort of a side throwaway. Oh, we could probably cut the miller. We could cut the soldier storyline. No, you can't, because he appears to have chopped off Mistress' generous hand while invisible during the scene. That's why it's quite important that you've got a soldier in your haunted house, because of course it's not haunted, they're just invisible. And yeah, that's what seems to have happened. That's I was going to say pleasingly grim. I think that's, and the fact that Generous sort of notices it, and I do like the way the soldier just goes, I've got this. I've got 3 hands. You can have the spare. There you go. I mean, it's soldier who is really quite blasé about such things because he's a soldier. Aliki.
It also sort of helps answer some of our questions about genre, because I don't see how that exchange can be anything but comical or intended to be anything but comic. Hand me that hand.
Yeah.
Hand in hand, I know.
Yeah. But it's also incredibly grim and dark. I mean, it's really dark humor, and again, it's part of that whole question of, you know, where does the comedy lie? Where does the you know, the darkness, folk horror tinge that we seem to be we keep dancing around. Greg, then Mark.
I was just going to simply say, yeah, it's very dark humor. I liked that aside speech, because it just kind of I didn't know what I was reading, and then I realized that actually that is quite a horrible speech, because he does realize it's his wife's.
Yeah, it's his wife's wedding ring, you know.
And you suddenly go, oh dear, yeah, all right, yeah, maybe I wish I'd known that's where that was going, because I would have been very different in how I played it. But actually, it's still funny, and that's what I find. It reminds me of a Martin McDonagh play when he's at his true bloody best. Yeah, very Lieutenant Fishmore.
Yeah, because they're looking for a hat. You know, they're looking about. You know, they find a hand, and it's just it's an ear in the pleasant picket fences. Mark.
Yeah, just following up on Aliki's comment about genre. Yeah, in terms of like happy ending, not happy ending, in terms of like genre conventions, and guessing about that. The Mistress Generous in one of the previous scenes we've read today said like, we mean mirth, not harm, or something like that. That seems to be kind of indicating like this is not going in the direction of like tragedy. So yeah, I guess we'll see.
Yes, Aliki.
There was also sort of quite a sweet coda to the whole haha, you are illegitimate business, with Robin saying, your father was great. I honored him and respected him, and woof, I would have been proud of such a son, which is, yeah.
Yeah, yes, because we had that whole little exchange where he turns up and just, I was you last night, and just you weren't. He was with me. We've been quite busy, and yeah. So all of these little things are having consequences and are going somewhere. They're not just there as little beats. This is a very carefully woven little fabric, that's doing lots of different interesting thematic things as well as, you know, plot things. And yeah, that's a moment to play, and I think you can have a lot of time playing with that. Okay, Act 5, Scene 4. There's a bed thrust out. Mistress Generous is int. Suspect not feeling well. Whetstone and Mal Spencer with her.
Why, aunt, dear aunt, honey aunt, how do you? How fare you? Cheer you? How is with you? You've been a lusty woman in your time, but now you look as if you could not do with all.
Good ma, let him not trouble me.
My Master Whetstone, you keep such a noise in the chamber that your aunt is desirous to take a little rest and cannot.
Well, in my uncle's absence, who but I should comfort my aunt? I'm not of the blood. Am I not of the next of kin? Why, aunt?
Good nephew, leave me.
The devil shall leave you ere I'll forsake you, aunt. You know, sick is so. And being so sick, do you think I'll leave you? What know I, but this bed may prove your deathbed, and then I hope you will remember me. That is, remember me in your will. Who's that knocks? Who's that knocks with such authority? 10 to 1 my uncle's come to town.
Be so excuse my weakness to him, say I can speak with none.
I will. And escape him if I can. By this accident all must come out, and there's no stay for me. More knocking. Again? Stay you here with your aunt, and I'll go let in your uncle.
Do good, Mal.
And Mal exits.
And how, sweetheart?
Enter Master Generous, Mal, Arthur, Soldier, and Robin.
You're well met here. I am told you oft frequent this house as my wife's choice companion, yet have I seldom seen you.
Pray, by your leave, sir, your wife is taken with a sudden qualm. She has sent me for a doctor.
But that labour I'll save you. Soldier, take her to your charge.
The soldier seizes Mal.
And now, where's this sick woman?
Oh, uncle, you come in good time. My aunt is so suddenly taken, as if she were ready to give up the spirit.
It is almost time she did. Speak, how is it, wife? My nephew tells me you were took last night with a shrewd sickness, which this maid confirms.
Yes, sir, but now desire no company. Noise troubles me, and I would gladly sleep.
In company there's comfort. Prithee, wife, lend me thy hand, and let me feel thy pulse. Sorry. Perhaps by some fever by there. Oh God, I'm going to start that again. In company there's comfort. Prithee, wife, lend me thy hand, and let me feel thy pulse. Perhaps some fever by their beating I may guess at thy disease.
My hand, 'tis there.
Ah, a dangerous sickness, and I fear to death. 'Tis odds you will not escape it. Take it that back, and let me prove the other. Perhaps I there can find more comfort.
I pray excuse me.
I must not be denied. Sick folks are peevish and must be overruled, and so shall you.
Alas, I have not strength to lift it up.
If not thy hand, wife, show me but thy wrist, and see how this will match it. Here's a testate that cannot be outfaced.
I am undone.
Hath my aunt been playing at handy-dandy? Nay then, if the game go this way, I fear she'll have the worst hand on't.
Is now apparent how all the last night's business came about. In this, my late suspicion is confirmed.
My heart hath bled more for thy cursed relapse than drops have issued from thy wounded arm. But wherefore should I preach to one past hope? Or when the devil himself claims right in all, seek the least part of interest. Leave your bed. Up. Make you ready. I must deliver you into the hand of justice. Oh, dear friend, it is in vain to guess at this my grief. 'Tis so inundant. Soldier, take away that young but old in mischief.
Soldier and Robin exit with Mal and Mistress Generous.
And being of these apostates rid so well, I'll see my house no more be made a hell. Away with them.
And everyone else exits. Oh my God, they are doing so many hand jokes, aren't they? I must deliver you into the hand of justice. My aunt's been playing at handy dandy. Oh God, I mean, it's never ending. Just show me a wrist. I'll match it with the hand. I mean, it's just wow. Okay. Yeah, Greg.
Did he? Because I couldn't quite work out. Did he realise that there was no hand by the end of that scene?
Oh yeah, I sure you before he came in.
Well, no, I sorry. As in, did she show him the wrist? Because I couldn't quite work out. So there was a point where I realised it's not explicit in the text, and I'm just wondering.
I think after I am undone, everything must be unveiled from that point onwards, at least. Right,
that's fine. It's just made me wonder because I was trying to work it out.
Yeah, it's and see, show me thy wrist and see how this will match it. Here's a testate that cannot be outfaced. So that's the point where they see the wrist, and yeah, the props makers have to add stump to the list of things to do. Okay, we're really leaning now into. Well, it's both the folk horror thing and the horror thing and comedy at the same time. It really is, because it's genuinely full of gags, this whole sequence. Yeah.
So
Aliki.
It's a bit like the humor in Young Frankenstein, with the arm of the corpse and that kind of really horrible but very, very funny stuff.
Mm.
And there's so much to do with all the bedclothes, the stump. And it's also a bit, what do you call it? Cinderella. Let's see if we can match this hand to this stump.
Oh, I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah, it's not quite a slipper, is it? But hey, if the hand fits.
Yeah. Actually, I don't think Martin McDonagh would have come up with anything this absurd. I really don't. I think he'd go, no, too much over the top.
Too much.
Too much.
He's a piker compared to...
Right. Well, we're going into, I think, the final scene. This is probably the point where if anyone does talk to themselves, this is when it will happen. Act 5, Scene 5, Bantam and Shakestone enter.
For the country, and they'll soon live in Lapland, isn't Lancashire hereafter?
What, for a false, elusive apparition? I hope the devil is not able to persuade thee. Thou art a bastard.
No, but I'm afflicted to think devil should have power to put such a trick upon us, to countenance a rascal that is one.
I hope Arthur has taken a course with his uncle about him by this time. Who would have thought such a fool as he could have been a witch?
Why, do you think there is any wise folk of the quality? Can any but fools be drawn into a covenant with the greatest enemy of mankind? I cannot think that Whetstone is the witch. The young queen that was at the wedding was in the house,
Lawrence and Parnell enter in their first habits.
See, Lawrence and Parnell civilly accorded again, it seems, and accoutred as they were wont to be when they've had their wits.
Blessed be the hour, I say, my honey, my sweet pal, that I's become thine agone, and thou's become mine agone. May this kisses ma us tway become both e'en forever and a day.
And he kisses her.
Yea, married lal, and thus shouldn't it be. There is naught gotten by fouring out. We mun fall in, or we get naught.
The world's well mended here. We cannot but rejoice to see this, Lawrence.
And you've been welcome to it, gentlemen.
And we been glad we had it for you.
And I protest I am glad to see it.
And thus shan you see it till our dying hour. We no love now for a lifetime. The do I shall not have the power to put us to pieces agone.
Why, now all's right and straight, and as it should be.
Yea, marry, that it is. The good hour be blessed for it that had put the wit into my head to have a mistrust of that pestilent codpiece point that the wicked warch Mal Spencer got me. Ah, woe with her, that were it made saw not.
It's possible.
It's possible.
Yea, marry, it were an enchantment. And about an hour since, it come into our hearts to do what y'all think, and we did it.
What, Parnell?
Marry, we take the point, and we casten the point into the fire, and the point spittered and spattered in the fire, like an it were, love bless us, a lave thing in the fire, and it hopped and skipped and wriggled and frisked in the fire, and crept about like a worm in the fire, that it were wark enough for us both with all the chimney tools to keep it into the fire, and it sticked in the fire worse than any brimstone in the fire.
This is wonderful as all the rest.
It would have scarred only that hadn't their wits till a seen it, and we were mad yont it were done.
And this were not above an hour fine, and you cannot devise how we han loved for it rather by now. Ye wouldn't even bless yourself to see it.
Ye and ye han pit on our working gear to swink and serve our master and mistress like until painful servants agone, as we shouldn't.
'Tis wondrous well.
And are they well again?
Yea, and Wheels Lake, hen blissum. They are us weel becomed as none ill had e'er been aneath them. Lo ye, as they come.
But we're going to pause before they come because I think we should just briefly unpack what's going on here. So, as people will remember, there was a gift to them of a point, which was laced into their clothing, and it was a bewitched point, and they put it in the fire. And considering that this is all about his impotence, having a wriggling thing, fighting to get at, fighting and spitting and spattering in the fire. I mean, again, it's all a bit Freudian, isn't it? But it's again, it's. I love the way that they sort of go. And the moment we did it, we were we were suddenly very happy. You should have seen it. And I'm going, no, I don't think we have the passcode to authorization to watch that in our household. So, yeah, I think there's a huge amount of humour that can be got out of that. And the general discussion of the bastardy again at the top, just going, well, we know it's a trick now. So, yeah, everything's sort of coming undone, but in ways that are sort of suggesting a relatively happy ending, because it's like they just burn the witch mark and they're all fine. They're having lots of lovely sex, and that's fine. They're happy, and they're serving their masters again. So all of their intemperance towards their betters, their social betters, has and they sort of go, well, as we should have done. All that time are gone. So yeah. Like a worm in the fair. Yeah, it's really not Lancashire, is it?
No, not at all. Not even close.
It is so written. It really is sort of Cod West Country rather than the north of even. It's not even generic north. Okay. Having this discussion all week, it just so isn't. Okay. So any additional thoughts on this lovely union, Aliki?
No, just having that, I'm rethinking the butter churn again. I think the whole thing is probably just rife with sex stuff that we've been missing or not making enough of.
Yeah, I think I'm content to, it again. It's all sort of there, isn't it? If in doubt, aim for the double entendre. Alan,
I suspect you've got the sort of a panto version of, on the face of it, the words are innocent, so they'll keep the kiddies amused, and the adults will take whatever smutty inference they wish from it.
Well, yeah, and I think this is an important point actually here. You shouldn't play the innuendos in a lot of these scenes because then it will die a death. I think, the innuendos are there or potentially there, but if you start going, and it was wriggling and do it on a and you start doing gestures, I mean, yeah, heaven help us all know. Not having any drum Googling going on here. Right. Enter Seeley. We're continuing the scene. The scene is still going on. More people enter. So I'm amazed we got through that last sequence without someone actually talking to themselves, even though I think Aliki were two people at one point. This is going to get confusing. Enter Seeley, Joan, Gregory, and Winny.
Excuse me, I'm Gregory.
Yes, it's your third part in this scene.
My son. Sir, if a contrite heart struck through with sense of its sharp errors, bleeding with remorse, the black polluted stain of it had conceived of foul unnatural disobedience, may yet by your fair mercy find remission. You shall appraise a son out of the gulf of horror and despair unto a bliss that shall forever crown your goodness, and instructive in my afterlife to serve you in all the duties that befit a son.
Enough, good boy. 'Tis most apparent we have all had our errors, and as plainly it now appears our judgments, yea, our reason, was poisoned by some violent infection quite contrary to nature.
This sounds well.
I fear it was by witchcraft. For I now, blessed be the power that wrought the happy means of my delivery, remember that some 3 months since I crossed a wayward woman, one that I now suspect, for bearing with a most unseemly disobedience in an untoward ill-bred son of hers. When, with an ill look and an hollow voice, she muttered out these words, "Perhaps ere long thyself shall be obedient to thy son." She has played a prank, it seems.
Sir, I have heard that witches apprehended under the hands of lawful authority to lose their power, and all their spells are instantly dissolved.
If it be so, then at this happy hour the witches ta'en that over us had power.
Enough, child, thou art mine, and all is well.
Long may you live, the wellspring of my bliss, and may my duty and my fruitful prayers draw a perpetual stream of blessings from you.
Gentlemen, welcome to my best friend's house. You know the unhappy cause that drew me hither.
Cannot but rejoice to see the remedy so near at hand.
Again, I'm going to pause us because this is an earth-shocking moment in the final few pages of the play when finally we got a motive. I said ages ago, it's like, why are the witches doing any of? There's usually some sort of incident that is the sparking off of witch accusations, and finally we've got it. Some 3 months since I crossed a wayward woman, and there we finally got it. It was indeed down to a relatively low level grudge that was being played off there, and they also bring up the plot point that once you're in lawful custody, this varies across interpretations of what's going on with witches, but generally, yes. In the idea is that once you're under lawful authority, they can't get at you, yes, hence the fact that with the arrest, as it were, of Mistress Gregory, not Gregory, Generous, the curse has been lifted on some level. So that seems to be potentially what's partly going on. The witch finding works. Anyway, walking away from that statement really quickly. Right, let's the scene continue as more people come on stage to make our lives really difficult. Enter Doughty, Miller, and Boy.
Come, gossip, come, boy. Gentlemen, you are come to the bravest discovery, Master Sidney and the rest. How is it with you? You look reasonable the world, methinks.
Sir, we do find we have reason enough to thank you for your neighborly and pious care of us.
Is all so well with you already? Go to. Will you know a reason for it, gentlemen? I have catched a whole kernel of witches, and it seems their witch is one of them. And so they are discharmed. They are all in officers' hands, and they will touch here with 2 or 3 of them for the little private parley before they go to the justices. Master Generous is coming hither too, with a supply that you dream not of, and your nephew Arthur.
You are beholden, sir, to Master Generous in behalf of your nephew for saving his land from forfeiture in time of your distraction.
I will acknowledge it most thankfully.
See, he comes.
Master Generous, Mistress Generous, Arthur, Whetstone, Maul, Soldier, and Rod. Everybody's on, pretty much. There are a few more to come, but yeah, pretty much everyone's on stage.
Oh, Master Generous, the noble favor you have showed my nephew forever binds me to you.
I pity then your misery, and now have nothing left but to bewail mine own in this unhappy woman.
Good Mistress Generous. Oh, that's me.
Yay, we got to a clash eventually. I knew there'd be one.
So Silly says, good Mistress Generous, and Arthur says, make a full stop there. Sides make sides. You know her not as I do. Stand aloof there, mistress, with your darling witch, your nephew too, if you please, because though he be no witch, he's a well-willer to the infernal science.
I utterly discard him in her blood, and all the good that I intend him, I will confer upon this virtuous gentleman.
Well, sir, though you be no uncle, yet mine aunt's mine aunt, and shall be to her dying day.
And that will be about a day after next seizes, I take it.
And we have the arrival of a constable bringing in the witches and various officers. So there's a lot of all the additional random witches who haven't really done very much are brought on.
Oh, here comes more your aunts. Not Dickieson and Aunt Hargreave, old fish, and your Granny Johnson too. We want but a good fire to entertain them.
And they're sort of gathered doing some witchy stuff.
See how they lay their heads together, witches charm together.
No stop her.
No relief.
Comfort.
Morsey, my Morsey, gentle Morsey, come.
Oh, my sweet Packling.
My mammalian.
What do they say?
They call their spirits, I think.
Now, a shame take you for a fardel of fools. Have you known so many of the devil's tricks, and can be ignorant of that common feat of the old juggler, that is, to leave you all to the law? When you are once seized by the talons of authority, I'll undertake this, little demagogue constable with these Commonwealth characters upon his staff here, as is able, in spite of all your bugged words, to starve off the grand devil for doing any of your good till, and come to his kingdom to him, and there take what you can find.
But, gentlemen, shall we try, if we can by examination get from them something that may abbreviate the cause unto the wiser in commission for the peace, before we carry them before them?
Let it be so.
Well said. Stand out, boy, and stand out, Miller, stand out, Robin, stand out, soldier, and stand out, lay your acquisitions upon them.
Big boy, do you know these creatures? Women, I dare not call them.
Yes, sir, and saw them all in the barn together, and many more at their feast and witchery.
And so did I. By devilish token, I was rid thither, though I rid home again as fast without switch or spur.
I was ill-handled by them in the mill.
And I sliced off a cat's foot there, that, since a hand, whoever wants it.
How I and my family have suffered, you all know.
And how I were bewitched, my pal here knows.
Yea, lal. And the which I know, and I pray you go me but to lead to scrat her well favourly.
And Parnell goes for Maul.
Old Parnell.
You can blame no honest woman, I trow, to scrap for the thing she loves.
Do you laugh, gentlemen? What say you to all these matters?
I will say nothing, but what you know, you know. And as the law shall find me, let it take me.
And so say I.
And I.
And I, other confession you get none from us. What say you, Granny?
Mammalian, how, mammalian?
Who's that you call?
My friend, my sweetheart, my mammalian.
You are not mad?
Ha ha!
Ha ha.
Her the devil, her incubus, I warrant. Take her off from the rest. They'll hurt her. Come hither, poor old woman. I'll dundle a witch with a little. Thou wilt speak and tell the truth, and shalt have favour, doubt not. Say, art not thou a witch?
They storm.
'Tis a folly to dissemble. Yea, sir, I am one.
And that mammalian, which thou callest upon in thy familiar devil, is it not? Nay, prithee, speak.
Yes, sir.
That's a good woman. How long hast had an acquaintance, huh?
A matter of 6 years, sir.
Pretty matter. What was he like, a man?
Yes, when I pleased.
And then he lay with thee. Did he not sometimes?
'Tis folly to dissemble. Twice a week he never failed me.
And how? And how a little? Was he a good bedfellow?
'Tis folly to speak of him worse than he is.
Aye, trust me, it is. Give the devil his due.
He pleased me well, sir, like a proper man.
Ah, there was a sweet coupling.
Only his flesh felt cold.
Arthur, I think that's Lynn.
No, it's Doughty.
No, he wanted great fires.
Oh, only his flesh felt cold. He wanted his great fires about him that he has at home.
Peace! And did he wear good clothes?
Gentlemanlike, but black points and all.
Aye, and very like his points were black enough. But come, we'll try for a year no longer. Now, show you all to the justices, and let them take order with you till the sizes, and let the law take his course. And with it, Rex, Master Generous, I am sorry for your cause of sorrow. We shall not have your company.
No, sir, my prayers for her soul's recovery shall not be wanting to her, but mine eyes must never see her more.
Mal, adieu, sweet Mal. Ride your next journey with the company you have there.
Well, rogue, I may live to ride in a coach before I come to the gallows yet.
And Mistress, the horse that stays for you rides better with a halter than your jingling bridle.
And Generous and Robin exit.
Master Celia, I rejoice from your family's atonement.
And I praise heaven for you that were the means to it.
And afore, drovers, with your untoward cattle.
And they exit variously.
Why do you not follow, Master Byblow? I thank your aunt for the trick she would have fathered us withal.
Well, sir, mine aunt's mine aunt, and for that trick I will not leave her till I see her do a worse.
You're a kind kinsman.
And they exit. There's a flourish, and then there is the epilogue.
Now, while the witches must expect their due by lawful justice, we appeal to you for favorable censure. What their crime may bring upon them, ripeness yet of time has not revealed. Perhaps great mercy may, after just condemnation, give them day of longer life. We represent as much as they have done, before law's hand did touch upon their guilt, but dare not hold it fit that we for justices and judges sit, and personate their grave wisdoms on the stage, whom we are bound to honor. No, the age allows it not. Therefore unto the laws we can but bring the witches and their cause, and there we leave them, as their devils did. Should we go further with them, writ forbid, what of their story further shall ensue, we must refer to time, ourselves, to you.
And the play ends. I'll tell you what happens next in a moment. I'm sure others will be able to fill in some details, but there's lots of little historical things that we'll go into a little later. I think we should deal with witch finding because it suddenly gets, we sort of. Actually, I'm going to go back. There are plot threads. This play has actually tidied them all up. Lois was talking about last time about this complex financial transaction that was going on that people occasionally mention. And it is sort of rounded up, and they're saying, while you were slightly distray, we sorted out the thing and everybody's fine. But then there's all this stuff to do with inheritance. And so all of these little things are sort of resolved, except in the way that I just went, I can't remember who, what, and any of those things. So it's all there. I think there's a bit of pointing that needs to be done to make those details sort of land. But it apart from, these people are fine, these people are fine. And then I say Doughty goes into full Witchfinder mode and creepy Witchfinder mode as well, because there is something where he just seems to be really obsessed about sex. About this whole "did you sleep with the devil" thing. Now I don't know whether this is accurate to the case, whether this is coming. It's certainly accurate to cases. I know this kind of discourse is very familiar. I should point out it's being a little coy here because often it's not so much his flesh is cold, but his is cold, and that's how you know you've slept with Satan, because it's very cold at that point. But yeah, he just keeps going on about good bedfellow, yeah, there's something really quite creepy about that, which is something that we'll find in later witch trials as well, with certainly Matthew Hopkins, etc. Aliki.
I happen to have just been looking at that particular document before we started, and it is very accurate. Those questions are to elicit the answers in the one known testimony from that case with the woman whose familiar was called Mamillion. So, but yeah, I agree. There is that prurience, and there's something I think especially horrible about the fact that it's clearly the oldest of the women who's being addressed in this way.
Yeah, and it's interesting that we have these sort of lesser witches who are there to do cackling and silly stuff, and yet the sort of the actual in community witches are dealt in a slightly different way in their discussions and the way that sort of comes together. And again, drawing us back to things like folk horror, did he wear good clothes, gentlemanlike but black points and all? If anyone's seen the film The Witch, there is these little details are the kind of things they lifted for that film, which is very much based on documentation of people talking about witch trials and the dialect of the time. So it's got very much a feel all the way through of this kind of text and this kind of speech. But the important thing is they don't know how it ends. They all go off to trial. There's forgiveness, or the possibility of forgiveness, and the potential of people praying for people's souls, and it goes, and basically the case falls apart in real life because it all hinges on someone called Robinson's testimony, who I think we can say the play sort of muddles Boy and Robin and Robinson and the sort of those testimonies, who's seeing what is a bit muddled from the actual case. But yeah, the Robinson is basically is all lies, and the case collapses, which gives us at least a case that it's not one of those particularly horrific ones where everybody's comes out at the end. But of course, at the time of writing this play, as the epilogue says, they don't know how it ends. So this is a famous case. Everybody's talking about it at the time it's being produced. So much so that anyone who's got a play with witches in is writing additional material to throw into these plays so that they can use details from this case. The King's Men who commissioned this play asked the Revels Office not to license any additions to old plays so that their play that is coming out soon can have precedence. So again, Premier Company, it's the King's Men. They're in the position to basically say, we've got the monopoly on this story. Please don't license anybody else to do anything else with it. And it's performed 3 days in a row in July of 1634. Presumably goes into rep following that, but that we know about those. There is at least one letter testifying to what the production, I believe, but I don't have access to that. And it seems to have a hinterland as additional performances later, some of which may be puppet plays, and we were discussing earlier about puppetry in this. That it sort of fits that sort of logic, and it's printed very soon after as well. So that's sort of what's going on with the play. Outside of the play, as it were. I thought I hold on to those details till we'd finished it. Typical King's Men, it's our play, it's our story. We've got the rights. But I say it's not really based on a pamphlet at this stage. It is very much whatever news is coming from the north, and whatever additional testimony that may have been written down, but I don't think there's any, or certainly we don't have any extant pamphlets. There may have been stuff, but we just don't have stuff. It's very disposable. So how do we feel about this as the close of the play? Sarah?
I've already put it in the chat, but I think because this play has a sort of ambiguous ending, and I actually wonder if it was because they literally didn't know the trial hadn't finished yet and they hadn't had the news, or whether it was because the news had come down And it was like, oh yeah, it all kind of fell apart. They didn't get convicted in the end because it was just, it was just some guy and he was lying, and so it like nothing happened. And they were just like, yeah, no, that's going to be a rubbish end to the play. So let's just pretend that we don't know what's happening. I do wonder about that. But anyway, that aside, because the play has got this ambiguous ending, and as people have also pointed out in the chat, because the witches are not particularly evil, really, and they're pretty good fun. And it's nice to see some women have a bit of agency in an early modern play. I would totally end this with the witches. Well, in my head, they're flying off across the sky, but for the purposes of the stage, you could have them just coming out and doing a dance, and also grabbing the one who's been arrested and just kind of having a bit of a knees up in the background while the epilogue goes on. I would like that very much, and I suspect a modern audience would too.
I just quite like the idea that Robin just wakes up. I mean, one of the few instances where it's all a dream is actually allowed, that you could just say, no, it's just the boy made some stuff up. Lynn?
I think it was all a dream thing is kind of a normally, I mean, that's really a weak excuse. Yeah. That's just like, but in this case, I really like it. I mean, there are two kind of related issues that make this a really difficult text to present. The historical reality of how many people suffered needlessly and unjustly because of the moral panic about witches, on both sides of the herring pond. So I don't want to trivialize that situation, because it was bad. And the other thing is, right now, we live in a time of rampant conspiracy fantasies, and just weird paranoias. And in this play, in the world of this play, the reasonable, rational, somewhat skeptical people keep saying, I don't even believe in witches, and they're wrong. So, I mean, I don't know about having, like, presenting a story where you say the paranoids and the conspiracy fantasists are right. I feel a little weird about that, but framing it as this is all someone's googly imagination, that someone who lives in a paranoid culture, Robin, or anyone alive right now, could get this sort of confused mush in their head. Because of the conditions that they live in.
I don't know that the text presents, the existence of witches as within that sort of conspiracy logic. I mean, the way the play functions, they're presented with overwhelming evidence before they really get down to saying maybe it's a witch. The witch as a reason sort of creeps into the narrative after quite a lot of pretty good reasons. Just also a point on the historical note, I don't actually know what happens to, I mean, just because they were acquitted doesn't mean that they came out of this well, because just going to prison is a pretty devastating thing at the time. Your odds on surviving prison are pretty low, just from disease and other things. So this story doesn't necessarily actually have a happy ending in that sense. But also just on the sense that the idea of presenting, say, a horror or a folk horror sort of spin on this seems to fit it quite well, in the sense that we have this community, we have a template which actually a modern audience can sort of latch onto, that may sidestep some of those crimes. Because they say this question of tone is still very much there. How much of this is funny and how much of this is dark? And where do we go with it? Since this is I sliced off a cat's foot. That is since a hand. Whoever wants it. I love the way the soldier just sort of says, anyone want the hand? What are we going to do with the hand now that we got the hand? Does she want it back? I don't know. We're going to hang it on the door? I don't know. Aliki.
I'm not sure if that was a that kind of want, or if it was a who's missing one. because he still doesn't know about all that business with Generous and Mrs. Generous.
Mm.
But for me, the question of tone is what makes the play so appealing and so compelling, and that it doesn't settle on one. And that's what makes me want to not leave the audience comfortable at the end. It's all right, witch empowerment. They all got away. They turned the world upside down, and that was a good thing. I kind of want to leave everybody a little bit unhappy.
You know, one of the characters got their hand chopped off. You know, and you know, there are some stakes here. I mean, you're sort of going, well, that's what happens when you worship Satan. But so it's sort of almost just. But there's something horrific about that. But it's also played for laughs, which also makes it almost more horrific. And there's such load and potential to this text that because we don't know where to leap with it. I think, as Aliki was saying, that's a good thing. Mark, you were waving. Nope, no, not anymore. You can wave away. Alan.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is that the question of unpleasant things happening to them is resolved in Doughty's speech towards the end of it, where, oh, take her off from the rest, they'll hurt her. And then speaks to Meg, come hither, poor woman. I'll dangle a witch a little. You know, you get the impression that it ain't going to turn out well for her, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was saying earlier, who is Doughty? And it's like Doughty's come into focus now there are witches, you know, for me as a character. Because, yeah, he's suddenly become really quite dark and but this is a whole of a society where they're constantly talking about sex. They're talking about you know, illegitimate children. This is playing in quite interesting ways with themes that you'll only normally see in a bloody tragedy set in Italy. But it's happening in England, in Lancashire, and they're not desperately high status people. They're all sort of middling status people. Some of them are reasonably, you know, some are landowners, but that, you know, they are not quite the gentry here. And if they are, they're sort of northern gentry in that sense. They're not your metropolitan elite. And that presents a slightly destabilized view of this society. It's not a straightforward, here is the king, here is these, here are the courtiers, and here are some assassins. And even at the end, we're sort of drawn into saying, well, all of these generic witches that we've had actually are, it's Goody Whatsits and thingy down there, and it's suddenly that they're a slightly different class of person when they actually are drawn to meet other people. Actually, who are they in real life? Other thoughts? I'm just going to keep talking until someone waves. I'm seriously running out of material. But you know, I've got a book here I can start quoting from. Alan.
One thing that intrigues me overall, I can see ways that a lot of this could be staged with modern technology, modern effects, modern prosthetics, and so on. It does intrigue me as to how they pulled off some of the effects with the resources that would have been available to them at the time, because an awful lot of things you could resolve now with snap blackouts or lighting effects, and probably the use of stage trucks is more sophisticated now than it would have been.
I don't think it's difficult to do at all. I think especially we've got a few more clues in this sequence. The moment you've got spirits who do things, and if you establish that early on, it's easy. It's all easy. The only complicated thing is making people vanish instantaneously. That's the only. Once you've got that licked, everything else is easy. Pale, flying around magically, you've got a spirit. But pies do things, spirits. It's all just you just have supernumeraries in spirit costumes. It's not complicated, and that's where I can lean into Sarah's thought from I think the first session about doing it outdoors. It can work without all of those things, and actually, I kind of think it needs to be not in a dark enclosed space. This is again leaning into the folk horror trope. This is horror in daylight. This is horror in the countryside. This is that kind of effect. And that functions really very well. I keep bringing up folklore, folk horror. So I think I will read a couple of definitions for you. Folk horror is a notoriously difficult thing to nail down. It's like trying to nail down jelly. But Adam Scoville gives you, and this comes from other sources before that as well. It's a work that uses folklore either aesthetically or thematically to create a sense of the arcane and eerie. A work that presents a clash between such arcania and its presence within close proximity to some form of modernity. Don't know if we quite have that. A work that creates its own folklore through various forms of popular conscious memory, even when it is young in comparison to a more typical folkloric and antiquarian artifacts of the same character. Not all of those elements quite fit this play, but at least the first one definitely does. And even if we look at such a thing as just even the wine, the whole thing of he's got his modern thing. He likes his wine from London, clashing with what's going on here. Might fit into that. We don't have an outsider coming into the community and discovering it's all weird and strange. But I say it's more just a little thread to hang your hat on. Aliki, then Lynn.
I think instead of modernity, you can have this sort of leaning towards the modern, towards a middle class, or not so much in the British sense, but a commercial class, a not quite squirearchy, people who are involved in mercantile kind of activities, the class that is becoming more and more prominent in Europe at this time, as opposed to your old feudal and peasantry distinctions. So that can kind of work.
Yeah. Lynn.
Yeah, I had thoughts on the presence of modernity as well. I think it is present, but more in I think Aliki has a really good point about like the financial transaction is something very modern about mortgages and so forth. And there's also modernity in the attitudes. A number of very reasonable characters, as I mentioned before, don't think witches exist. I think skepticism is very modern at this point in time. We're sort of on the eve of the Enlightenment. So it's the modernity in their worldview, in their way of being in the world, that the folklore and the traditional belief in witches is opposed to, is set up against.
Now, in practical terms, thinking about staging it, we're into final thoughts. You can't double this down. You're going to need a team of at least 16 to just cover your principals, who mostly turn up at the end or in some of those big scenes in the middle of the play. So, it's a big company play. And we don't quite have our usual get out of, hey, let's get little kiddies. Because I'd love to. I think, frankly, students would love to do this one, but whether it would be considered quite appropriate is another matter. But I just think this is one to really save, and I'd love to have 8 weeks and 20 actors and the national stage. Do this in the Olivier, build a lovely bucolic set that's nice and open with grass and things, and then just add in the layers of darkness and just have and not even say at this point, how would you cut it? I mean, I don't know how you cut this play. It's a long play. It moved pretty fast. But not only is it long, it's also got sequences involving dance and music that must take time to happen. So it's long, and it's also longer. And I don't see anything specific I would take out. There's no easy route. And even filleting, I mean, it's not like anyone really goes on for that long at any point.
Not one person, but I was noticing on the first day, there are scenes that take longer than they have to. Like there's something being revealed in that scene, and the play likes to tease you about it. And we don't need to do that. Like the scene where Mrs. Generous confesses to her husband, for instance, it takes him longer to pull that out of her than it needs to. So I think if you got in there with your editor's scalpel, you could probably trim out quite a bit.
But it's still, you'd need to trim out quite a lot, and that's my worry of killing it. I don't want to kill it because I'm really interested in the detail, actually. Other final thoughts around the room? Donald and then Aliki.
I was just thinking about the trigger warnings that you might want to have to put on this, or the thing that we get on British television now is if you have been affected by any of the issues in this play. I really enjoyed it, and I think obviously it is comedy, but I think you have got to play it absolutely straight. You can't nod and wink, and so on. You treat it exactly as that, and all the innuendos and stuff will work fine. And it's so theatrical. It's an obvious thing to say, but it really is. It's the kitchen sink, isn't it? So, good find, I think.
Yeah, and also just on another note, anyone get a sense of horrible gear changes between two authors?
Not so much as we've had in the past. Say, definitely not. No, I didn't feel that sort of golly. We had weeks ago. No, absolutely not.
It's not like when we're doing the various Ho plays where it's like a scene where you just feel the of going, oh god, we're into Chapman, and back into Johnson, and I mean, even if some of those are actually illusory, it felt so well integrated that these two people really know how to pull a script together. It's really comprehensive stuff. Aliki, I think you were next.
So ever since Sarah said that about staging it outside, and maybe because I used to live in Lancaster, I've been thinking about Williamson's Park in Lancaster and how brilliant that would be in production with a local community company or a local community company and a more professional company working together. Because there's something about this sense of community that I think in any town that you did it, if you did it with the kinds of companies that do, say, the Passion Plays, which have a lot of people who aren't necessarily professional actors or full-time professional actors, but who everybody knows around the community because they do all of the stuff, that would have a really interesting effect.
Yeah. And yeah, it's that kind of thing where you just need that scale, perhaps, but you also need the detail. You can't. I think that's where it slightly doesn't quite. You need sort of the two hands there, because if you go all towards a community production, I think you risk losing the detail of the text. Whereas if you go all professional, you're just going, we can't afford to do this text. Yeah. Any additional final thoughts to throw into the mix? Connor, this was your first and only session with this play.
I really enjoyed that. It was good fun.
Yeah.
It's got good pace to it. There's good characterization. It's just a really fun. That was a really fun third of the play. So thank you for having me.
Right. Well, I think we've exercised this text rather well. I think we've got a general sense of it. I think I'd love to do it. I'd love to do it right now. I just want to workshop and just play with this and more because I don't see us being able to do it anytime soon. But you know what? Hey, patrons, you want to vote for us to do this? It's all right. I'm just going to hyperventilate into a bag for a while. On that note, if you'd like to join us for any of these future readings, you can always sign up on our website, beyondshakespeare.org. There is a sign-up sheet always available for future exploring sessions. That's updated every week when we do these. Anyone can join in. You too can join us online and read plays and go, what? All that remains is thank all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. Have thy puggy yet sucked upon thy pretty duggy?